there's a truth, a principle that a lot of people either don't understand, or they've heard the phrase and they understand its concept, but kind of like Santa Claus or the Easter Bunny, they don't really believe that it's going to happen. So they have this false sense of security. Here's the phrase: those things that have been done in secret, under the cover of darkness, will one day be revealed by the light. Enron was thoroughly convinced that what they were doing they would get away with. Not only were they convinced that what they were doing they would get away with, they had somehow in their minds justified the illegal, immoral, financially devastating behavior. Almost like an organized crime syndicate. They had reached a level of arrogance and confidence in their sneakiness, or their way of justifying and labeling their criminal behavior. They had reached a level in that they just said, look, either we're not going to get caught for this because nobody has said anything so far, or what we're doing is actually right. It's okay. It's acceptable because no one has said anything about it so far. And I think our larger society suffers with that same level of ignorance and arrogance. The assumption that you haven't been yet caught or yet prosecuted doesn't mean that what you're doing right now is good or wise or beneficial to you or anyone else. You know, our government has claimed for decades that this will be the administration of transparency. And then as time passes, we find that not only were they not transparent, they were intentionally hiding things. The biggest, from a government standpoint, the biggest sleight of hand that we see has to do with bills and appropriations and amendments to the Constitution and legal jargon that takes place at the time that a new legislative process comes into being. We're going to pass this new act that does this, but we don't really see what goes on behind the scenes, all the garbage that's tied on to the passing of that bill that many cases, and ask my friend Senator Jason Rapert or some of my friends who are no longer serving in Congress but have, that the ones who've worked in the political offices in the background, who've worked on the Hill as team players for senators and other candidates. And you're going to find that it's pretty common that a bill will come to the floor, whether it's in committee or to be passed, and it has a specific purpose. It has a specific agenda. One recently was the Texas bill that was presented to provide financial help after Hurricane Harvey. And it didn't pass the House. And everybody's looking at the Congress going, how could a bill so desperately needed, so obviously needed, not pass? How can it be? Well, the truth of the matter is, there were so many pork belly amendments that had to do with key donors and constituents and little to do with the overall public. They were manipulations. They were like crochet hooks stabbed into the side of the bill to draw out funds for my little friend over here, my little pet project over here, my little, something's going to make my district, my office, my congressional seat look really good. Those things that are done in the closet, behind closed door in committee, when no one else is in the building, will one day be shouted from the rooftops. If you just want to see a fascinating series of stupidity and arrogance, that sense that I will never be caught. Just go to YouTube and type in the search "caught on camera." You will be mind boggled by the stupidity of the human race. Some of the things that we as humans really think we can get away with because we didn't know there was a camera watching. And you have to ask yourself, do you live life in such a way that if there was a camera on you 24/7, and there is, somewhere, at every point, would you be okay for your mom to watch that tape? Would you be okay for it to be broadcast for the whole world to see? Do you live a life of transparency and integrity and character and moral fortitude that if it were put up on a big screen for everyone to watch, you would not be humiliated beyond your ability to bear it? See, transparency and authenticity are often kind of used interchangeably. And when they are, I usually hear it from leaders and from speakers, especially speakers, probably the greatest offenders in this category. I just want to be authentic. I want to speak with my authentic voice. I want to write with my authentic voice. I want you to know who I am, so I will tell you everything I want you to know. And their authenticity, their authentic voice, their authentic nature, their authentic writing, their authentic speeches are fake. They're a manipulation of the audience. They only want to tell you what really works to sell more books, to sell more speeches, to get on more stages, right? You've got to identify the pain first. Identify the pain that the audience has and identify how your solution will meet that pain. That's authenticity. But only if you actually know that you can meet that pain because, well, you've had that kind of pain or something similar to it. And I'll tell you, I see people stretch the truth until it snaps in a million pieces and then keep stretching, exaggerating, embellishing, plagiarizing other people's crisis in order to be authentic, of course, so that they can be a form of transparency but still lying about their own life. So they can tell you how much they're like you, so they can resonate with you. They don't really want to be transparent. They don't really want to be authentic. They don't really want the opportunity to lay their life on the line in front of you so that you can see all the flaws and all the scars and all the mistakes and realize that there is enough grace to cover all of it. Now, what difference does it really make? I don't know. You ever been manipulated by a lie? If you live in Texas, especially in North Texas, you were manipulated by a lie last week. Because I'll guarantee you there's at least one person watching who went to the gas station and sat in line for an hour or more. There's at least one person watching who went to more than one gas station and still didn't get any gas. There's at least one person watching who last week, in the wake of Hurricane Harvey, became a victim of the silliness that is media hype. The threat that, well, because all of our refineries are underwater, we are going to be out of fuel. We're going to experience a fuel crisis in Texas. Well, it was a bold lie. Ultimately, there may be some time that the refineries impact the distribution pathways, the speed to market for our fuel. Ultimately, there may be some impact, short-term or long-term, on gas prices because of Hurricane Harvey and the devastation that it left behind. the reality of those being felt while the rain is still falling are pretty slim. Unless you control the mass media and the ability to create a panic. And that's what happened. So I started hearing the whispers the day before the public did. And I mentioned it to my wife. And so we got up the next morning early. We went to the gas station. We filled up our cars at $2.25, which was up 25 cents from the night before. But we filled up our cars. We filled up my truck and my bike and a couple of gas cans, and we went on our merry way. By noon, some of those same places were selling gas at $3. By the end of the day, the end of the business day, there were people getting off work and buying gasoline in North Texas at close to $11 a gallon. What? In 12 hours, gas prices went up 500%? How would you like to see the transparency behind that silliness? What if we could find the genius who stood to capitalize on the cost of fuel being sold, who might have possibly leaked it to the media that their refinery might run out of gas? See, there was one that made the news. And I'm not accusing them of anything. I do think it looks a little odd that all of the interviews that were done were with a particular fuel company who owns its own refineries, its own distribution process, and its own gas stations. And their public declaration on the news was, we will not have enough fuel to service all of our stations, so get it while you can, and there will be 4 or 5 stations that we will service over the next few weeks. Really? 4 out of 130? That's interesting. Sure enough, they had a run. And I'm guessing they didn't just sell gasoline. I'm guessing they sold a whole lot of coffee and snacks and drinks. See, there's this thing people do in the online education process. It's called create a sense of urgency or create a sense of scarcity. If you can convince people that there's only so many of them, or there's only so much opportunity, or there's only so much time, then you can drive up the price and thereby drive up demand. I mean, if everybody else is willing to pay that high price for it, obviously it's worth it. So let me ask the question again. Who cares if you're transparent? Who cares if the companies around you are transparent? Who cares if the media were genuinely, not fake authenticity, but genuinely transparent? What difference would it make? I heard a story the other day about a young man whose life and career weighs in the balance of one opinionated, bloviated, arrogant leader. This young man's still in his early 20s. He's very early in his career. His potential is incredible. It's been witnessed. His opportunity is vast. His career could be long and popular. But just a wee bit of misinformation, a wee bit of manipulation of a couple of facts that may or may not be true, but nobody can prove it one way or the other. And suddenly his career is on hold. A big pause button pushed on what his life could be over an accusation that has already been declared by those who heard it the first 16 times to be made up of whole cloth. And without regard for who he is or where he is, how would you like to know that one liar in cahoots with another liar whose arrogance and authority give them opportunity to wreck the lives of others could end your career? What if one person you work with lied about the quality of your work? What if one person you work with made a stupid mistake and blamed it on you, and it went all the way to the boss? What if you lost your job or your career over that lie? Would you be looking for transparency then? Transparency is not easy. It's costly. And transparency has levels. There are things that I say to my wife that I would never say to anybody but my wife. And I think in our relationship, that is absolutely essential. It's necessary. It's mandatory. That we have the kind of relationship where there's nothing hidden. My wife knew before we got married that I was addicted to pornography. Listen to her own testimony. She'll tell you that. At the time, young, innocent, naive person that she was, she thought that was pretty normal. My transparency didn't scare her away. But had I lied about it, and it had been discovered 2 or 3 years into our marriage, we would not have celebrated 23 years yesterday. I wonder if you're that bold in your relationships, the ones closest to you. Now, I'm pretty transparent on this program. Just go back and watch the podcast. It will blow your mind, some of the things that I say. But I still say them with discretion. And I know that you don't need to know everything. And if you were to ask me a question, direct and raw, I might not answer it in every forum, but I wouldn't lie to you. I'll tell you the truth. Even if it's embarrassing to me, even if it's humiliating to me, I'll tell you the truth. Because I live my life to honor a God from whom I can hide absolutely nothing. Those things done in the darkness, they will one day be displayed in front of the light. In fact, in the book of Revelation, John talks about the idea that all of the events of our life were displayed for all the world to see. It's not an if, it's a when. There will be a day when every decision you've made, the intents of your heart, the thoughts and the attitudes in the heart of a man will be laid bare, everyone to witness. And who you've been and who you've pretended to be and who you are versus who you say you are, your reputation, your brand, your true character, everybody's going to see it. You can get in some good practice now being authentic with your significant other. Don't lie when they say, "What are you thinking?" That's the easy one. That's the easy lie. That's the really easy lie. "What are you thinking?" "Nothing." "Really?" I played a game with a friend of mine. He watches this program from time to time, Ron Akins. Way back when, this is 30 plus years ago, Ron and I would walk around town before I bought my first car, and then we would drive around town after that. And we made a small pact just between the two of us one time that whenever the other one asks, "What are you thinking?" no matter how disgusting, no matter how ridiculous, no matter how off the beaten path of normal human life your thought might be, just share it. There was some weird stuff we discussed. Because I'm telling you, there's some weird thoughts in the mind of a teenage boy. Weird thoughts. But that level of transparency takes practice. It takes the ability to trust, to be raw and real. And sometimes the hardest person to trust is yourself. In the book that I'm wrapping up right now, The 5 Battle Strategies of a Victorious Warrior, one of the thoughts that we talk about is the idea of taking every thought captive. I'm going to go somewhere for a minute that I know is a sensitive subject. Also know it's a subject that could be literally life and death. You with me? There are people who have thoughts of suicide that run through their mind on a regular basis. And these thoughts are kind of like the gas crisis. And what I mean by that is for the moment, in the moment, whether it's a 5-minute moment or a 20-minute moment or a 5-year moment. At the moment, in the moment, only the crisis can be seen. When the camera zooms in, whether it's from the helicopter or the street corner, trust me, I spend enough time behind a camera, I know how to do this. They're just the right angle, just the right light where a crowd of 4 can look like a mob. Where 7 cars in line at a gas station with 82 pumps can look like a crowd. You just got to know where to put the camera, how to position the camera, where to find the rest of the line to create the depth of field and the vanishing points. When you do that right, though, you can create the image of an unbelievable crisis. And your mind has the ability to do the same thing. Suicidal thoughts and tendencies may be hereditary in the forms of depression and things of that nature, chemical imbalances that various people struggle with. They may just be lies straight from the pit of hell. It may be a manipulation of the facts, the lenses through which you see life right now. But let me tell you something. If you don't have the ability to be transparent with yourself, to back up for a moment and go, what is that thought that's going through my head? Why do I suddenly feel hopeless and depressed? If you can't take that thought captive and beat it into obedience, that thought is going to be like the panic media gone wild inside your mind. If you can't be transparent with yourself, if you can't be honest about the thoughts that you have and where they came from and do they really have any founding, are these just made up? You're going to find yourself in trouble. Transparency could save your life. Transparency with yourself, transparency with those that lead you, transparency with those that you lead, transparency with your organization, transparency with your church. And while I'm on that topic, let me just say, I think part of the reason that the church, the body of Christ, is powerless right now is because they fear transparency. I truly, honestly believe that. How do I know? It's hard to sell a book that challenges the way people think. It's harder to sell a speech that causes them to think. There are very few places who hear the topic that I discuss in churches and say, oh yeah, bring him in. Men's pastors fear it. It's a bold and brave thing. I know, I've done it in a few places. To stand on the platform and say, I spent 25 years addicted to pornography. And I discuss everything with my wife. And you can see men shrivel up in their seats. The fear turns them inside out, right where they're sitting. Eyes are straight forward like they're standing at the urinal. They're horrified that some expression on their face may reveal them to their wife because they've been lying all this time. And some of them are sitting on the platform behind me, and some are in the front row holding the mic to take the stage right behind me. Transparency scares people. But in the same way that John Maxwell's father says all the time, you can pay now and play later, or you can play now and pay later. There is a power in transparency. I want to close with this. Wise words of Eminem. You didn't know they had any of those, did you? Yeah, in the movie 8 Mile, go back and watch it if you haven't. Ignore the language, ignore the drugs, ignore the sex, ignore the alcohol, ignore the violence, and focus on the nature of a young man who found himself living a life of hell. And in his final rap battle, makes a discovery of internal fortitude, his own integrity, where he questioned, do I belong here? And just before he went on the stage, hiding in the bathroom, his friend mentioned to him, you know what he's going to do out there? He's going to out you for everything. I mean, you're not from this zip code. You don't even belong here. Area code, excuse me, the 313, I believe, is the right one. He said, you don't belong here. You don't look like anybody else. You talk about being ghetto, you talk about being hood, but you're a white man from the other side of the 8 Mile Bridge. You don't even fit in. You don't have the authority to stand on the stage and rap against these guys. And your mom, she didn't have the best reputation. The young man says, you know what? You may be right. So he takes the stage, and the very confident opponent says, go ahead and start, man, because I'm going to tear you up. And what does he do? He outs himself. I don't live on this side of the bridge. My mom's not the best person. I don't have the kind of life you think I do. I don't look like the rest of you. But I still got a right to be here. And every weapon the enemy fashioned against him lost its power in his transparency. Did you hear what I just said? Those are life-changing words if you will hear them. Every weapon the enemy had fashioned against him lost its power in the face of his transparency. It's true in your life. It's true in your leadership. It's true in your church. It's true in your organization. It's true in your company. Every weapon formed against you will lose its power when it faces your transparency. But if you can't identify the sin in your life, it's going to eat you up. If you can't identify your weak spots, you're going to lose to them. There's a power in transparency that most people fear, the transparency and not the power. If you will learn to master taking every thought captive, being real and honest with yourself and real and honest with those that are close around you, you're going to find power over a whole lot of things, from suicidal thoughts to the thoughts that devastate marriages, that destroy companies, the arrogance that says, I've gotten away with it so far. There's no indication I won't continue to. Oh, there is an indication. Everything done in the darkness will be revealed in the light. Everything hidden in the closet will be shouted from the rooftops. Every moment you thought no one saw has been recorded, and it will be displayed for all the world to see. Transparency is a powerful thing. And like a tree to climb on in your front yard, the best time to plant it was 20 years ago. But you can't do that. So the second best time is today. Get busy planting transparency in your own life. Tell the truth. First to yourself, and next to those that you care about. I'm J Loren Norris, and you've been watching Tell It Like It Is TV. Have a blessed day. And for those of you that are still here, crush that subscribe button on YouTube. I'd like to see over 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year. The channel is new. It's only been up since, well, the channel's been around for a while, but these series of videos have only been on the channel since June 1st. So we're only 90 days in, but I would love to see 1,000 subscribers before Christmas. Will you help me with that? Will you help share? Of course, you're welcome to subscribe on Facebook. I do Facebook Live at the same time that I do YouTube every day. The YouTube is rolled up to iTunes podcast, and so if you like to get these messages to watch at your schedule, not live at 6:20 a.m., then you can subscribe to the podcast in iTunes, and it'll simply come to your device, and you can listen to them and delete them when you're ready, or share them with a friend. Some things are shifting in our world, in our little world, in the Norris household. And I believe, with great hope, because that is really all I got, that God's going to open some doors that we've never seen open before. I'll share those with you as the time comes. They seem to be moving fast. Pray for us that we'll be ready. I appreciate you spending some time with me today, and I appreciate, in fact, I'm honored, I'm flattered, I'm humbled that I would get to spend time with you. See you soon.